'Cause like a winter tonight, I thought I would always have light. The quick flash that you gave to me, so dark I could barely see.
From wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. This is the Circle of Insight show, a show about everything in human behavior. And today we're going to be talking about politics, California politics. We're with Assemblywoman from California in the 65th District, Young Kim. So let's welcome Assemblywoman Kim to the Circle. Welcome to the Circle.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is great stuff. And I know we have a really important bill that you're fighting for, AB 42, but before we get to that, I want to learn a little bit about you.
Sure.
So where are you from?
Oh my God, in case you can't tell, I'm an immigrant from South Korea. It was 40 years ago exactly when my parents made the tough decision to immigrate my family. I was born in Incheon, Korea, which is famous for MacArthur Landing.
Oh yeah.
And from there, I finished my elementary school and went to Guam, finished my junior high there, and then went to Hawaii for my high school education. Wow. And then came to Los Angeles to go to college at USC. It's really interesting because when I was living on the islands of Guam, I was young then. My mother would often take me out, or even during the week, but mostly on the weekends, take me out to the beach. And she will ask me to help her with collecting trashes and collecting cans and bottles. It wasn't just for environmental cleaning, purposes. Later, I found out what she did was the cans and bottles that she collected were used to pay for the church building fund. If you know, Carlos, immigrants like us, some 40, 50 years ago, the one place where the immigrants would gather and share their experiences and share, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and then sharing different best practices was all evolved around churches. At the time, as a poor immigrant just making our ends meet, my mom did what she thought was best in her way to contribute to her community, and that was to do that. So recycled funds went to serve as a down payment to build a church 40-some years ago. And I saw, what I learned from that was the value that my mom instilled in me, giving back to the community, serving the community, and doing everything you can to work around the communities together. That really helped me to understand why I am in public office right now. Because as I evolved to Guam, to Hawaii, to California, and after I graduated from USC, that's still the values that my mother taught me still instilled in me. So it wasn't a surprise when I started working for then State Senator in 1990. This is after I did my time in private sector, working as a financial analyst, working as a controller for a manufacturing firm. And then I also owned a business called YK Connections myself. And then I started working for Ed Royce. And then he ran for Congress. And so for all 23 awesome years, this young immigrant girl from South Korea had an opportunity to work with a politician who obviously many people know, who is the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee at this time. That incredible experience allowed me to see what it is to be a public servant, what it means to be giving back to the community. And so when the opportunity came in 2012, well, actually, it was 2014 when I ran and won my seat.
An amazing victory, by the way. You beat an incumbent.
Thank you.
It's really hard. 85% incumbents win, and you beat her. That's profound.
A lot of people thought it would be an insurmountable challenge I will not, overcome because, again, number one, I've never run for an office prior to running in 2014. I was going against a sitting incumbent. But those things never was a factor for me, at least for me. This was a district that I knew, by working with the congressman whose district was exactly this assembly district that I have the privilege of representing right now. It's a community that I worked in for over 2 decades, knowing the community, knowing the cities, knowing the officials, knowing the community organizations and groups. So when I announced my candidacy, the community embraced my candidacy so warmly, and they came together to provide not only the manpower that I needed, the grassroots support that I needed, but they actually really helped me to raise the funds I needed to get my message out. So, it was a tough race. It's probably one of the most expensive state assembly races that you've seen. I spent $2.2 million to win it.
$2.2 million?
Yes.
Wow.
My opponent spent $4.5 million. We were totally outspent 2-1, but we played smart. We had the good message, and we knew how to get to the community with the right message that we wanted.
Let me ask you this question. This is a psychology show, and I always have an intrigue when it comes to people overcoming odds. So what did young Kim say to herself? Because I'm sure some people said to you, listen, young Kim, you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to beat her. Mm-hmm. And what did Assemblywoman Young Kim say in her head? What did you say? Did you say, I'm not going to listen to these people, I'm just going to do it, or I can win? What did you say?
First of all, my family was the big source of inspiration for me. If my husband and my children, all grown up, thankfully, didn't say, when I told them I'm considering to run, their immediate response was, Mom, what took you so long? And it was my husband telling me, this is your district. You've worked here. You've lived here. You really know the community. This is your district. Go for it. With that, psychologically, mentally, I was already prepared. And to those critics who said, you cannot beat an incumbent, I said, bring it on. Let me do this. And so I believed in myself because my parents believed in me. They instilled that value. Don't give up. Believe in yourself and set a goal and go for it. And she always told me, dream big. I dreamt big and kept on dreaming bigger and bigger. And now again, don't give up and you can do this. I am now the first Korean American Republican woman ever to serve in the state legislature. Wow. I'm the only Asian American representing this 65th State Assembly District. Right now, I'm the only Korean American in the legislature out of the entire 120 members, both Senate and the Assembly.
That's amazing.
Combined. And so I'm very proud not only to represent my own district, but the entire Orange County and the state of California. And again, that is a tremendous challenge, but tremendous honor for me, and I take this job very, very seriously.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
How do the Korean community, they must be ecstatic.
Yes. And again, being the only Korean American at the moment, I wanted them to be proud of me for them standing with me as a minority person, but they did. And Carlos, I tell you, being a Christian myself too, I'm not shy to proclaim my faith. I started my campaign with prayer. I ended my campaign with the prayer. And so it was so natural for me when I first took office. I asked my pastors, friends in the faith community, would you please come up to Sacramento and pray with me so I can start my first session in the legislature with the prayer, giving thanks to God, because I didn't do this alone. I didn't get there because Young Kim was the good person. I didn't do it. God was there for me. So I was very happy that 15 of my colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, joined me, and 30 pastors from Orange County, Southern California, they drove up to Sacramento to join me in my first Capitol prayer breakfast.
Oh, wow.
We had a prayer session there, and then shortly after our prayer team, we went down to the assembly floor so they could witness the passage of my first bill in the assembly that was introduced by me, Assemblywoman Young Kim, to proclaim January 13, 2015 as the Korean American Day. And if this was done before, it was done by previous members that was not a Korean American. So obviously, it was important for me that my very first bill, very first legislation that I spoke on the assembly floor was just that. Something that relates to my background, my heritage. And that was, in fact, the very first bill that was ever heard in this session on the floor on January 12, 2015, proclaiming the next day, January 13, Korean American Day.
How could you not be inspired by her? Is she fabulous or what?
Thank you.
So let's ask, now that's something we're going to get into a little bit. I know we want to talk a little bit about the bill.
Yes.
Education is a really big thing for you. It's big for me as well. It's really important. So what's going on here?
So as you know, I'm a mother of 4 kids, so education is very important. My children benefited from public education. My first child went to UCI. The rest of the 3 kids went to Cal State Fullerton. So you can see, I see the value of this public education, and California has the best public institutions. It was so important for me. But as soon as I was elected, before I could even take the oath of office, I learned that UC Regents voted to increase tuition for up to 28% for the next 5 years.
5 years?
That's about 5% every year for the next 5 years. I said, this is not right. Prop 30 was passed to promise that there would be adequate funding to provide for our public education and higher education system. And so what I did was, the first day I was sworn in, I introduced my very first bill, AB 42, calling for a tuition increase while Prop 30 is in effect. Now, a lot of, and then since then I've been talking to the California University systems, UC, CSUs, community colleges, to meet with the stakeholders, to introduce them and talk to them about why I'm doing this. They all understand. But at the same time, they were concerned about, some of the provisions, why I'm doing this, because they thought, I was maybe trying to cut funding for the public education. That was not the case. The purpose of the legislation was to ensure that there would be adequate state funds provided to allocate for higher education at public institutions, UC, CSUs, community colleges. Now, this has become a 2-year bill, and so what that means is this year, as in January, Governor presented to the legislature his, budget proposal.
Oh, that's right.
And then I am serving on the budget committee. I'm also serving on the education committee. These are the issues that we've been talking about. And we had a number of hearings in the education committee, especially in the budget sub-2 committee that looks at education funding, which I also sit on. We had the opportunity to bring in the stakeholders and the leaders from UC, CSUs, and community colleges, and to really discuss the overview and what needs they have and what accountability and transparency they can provide to the legislators as we consider what we can do to ensure that they are getting the adequate funding, but is there an accountability issue? And so precisely at UC systems, there were a lot of concerns about the increasing number of non-resident students compared to the resident students attending our UCs. And so we dedicated a lot of our committee time to address those issues. Also, while doing that, it's very difficult to make any commitment as to how much the state will provide for our public education until we see what the governor's May revise or May revision budget would look like. And so as we're speaking right now, just yesterday, Thursday, Governor did present the May revise. And for me personally, because education is very important, I reviewed the revision, and I was very pleased to see that governor is calling for a 2-year tuition freeze at our community college,
Very nice.
the higher education in UCs and CSUs, and so that I was really glad to see that, because that was my number one priority. And so, obviously, in addition to that, there are a lot of things that we need to look at before we can make a determination on what we will be supporting. But so far, what I've seen, especially again for me, education being the number one priority for me, I'm glad to see Governor has put that as his number one priority, and that would mean I'll be more comfortable in reviewing the budget with the lens of promoting the adequate funding that our public colleges and universities are needing. And then also I joined my Orange County delegation to request the governor to provide the $97 million that the CSU was asking, and I believe there is another $100 million that the UCs are asking, and I believe that will be addressed, and we will be able to fund that, because as you know, we found that, or LAO, Legislative Analyst Office, found additional $4 billion or so in addition to what we thought in January. So we will be able to address those, and we're going to have to work hard to really work in a way that it makes sense, and we will be able to provide funding, adequate funding, for all different departments as well. As education is important, but just as important is taking care of our veterans. Those are very important.
Very important.
We have water, infrastructure, transportation needs. There are so many needs in our state. We will be able to address those things, but we will do it if it's a one-time fund, because we don't want to say, we got all these surplus, therefore let's go ahead and start providing funding for everything that we have on the table. That's not going to work.
That's not going to work. We're running out of time. I'm getting cues from everywhere in this building. Assemblywoman Kim has to leave. Thank you so much for being here. I'll tell you one thing. I have 2 little girls. They're going to be going to college, and I'm so glad that we have somebody like you in there fighting for education. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the circle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glad to be in the circle.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember, our motto is simple. Wherever there's psychology involved, even in the California Assembly, we're going to be there. We'll see you next time.